Jill, I want to make you co-host, but I need you to log in. So that I can.
Find something, you didn't find something?
Yeah, go fit on my honey downstairs.
You've got honey.
I have honey downstairs. Go fit on it. My honey is downstairs. Can I just buy something?
We're getting there.
We have more.
Attendance is still happening.
I don't have any of that. We were talking about the executive committee, but I said.
Yeah,
no,
I see. So you're just. He was here in person.
Can I sit in with him since I checked?
Absolutely. I would like, it's hard for me to sneak out.
There's no sneaking. More. Are you going to that thing tonight?
No, because I'm here.
I RSVP'd.
Are you gonna go?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know.
That well.
It feels like it feels.
Yeah. Call the meeting to order. And I am going to say, thank you for being here. You could be many other places right now that are not here, but you're here. And it's a huge help for the college and all of us. And thank you for those who have joined online. And so our first order, and I have remembered to record the meeting. No one needed to remind me today. So our first order of business is to approve the agenda. Are there any objections or concerns about the agenda today? It will probably stay in the order it's in, but maybe not. So depending on how timing works out. Hearing no questions or objections, the agenda is approved. One reminder for the agenda, it is not on the agenda. But at around 3:30, 3:35, maybe 3:40, we are going to pause the meeting and take a photo. So the photographer is coming between 3:30 and 4:30 today. When the photographer arrives, once we are finished with a presentation on the budget, we will pause the meeting, gather together somewhere and maybe there and take a photo of the Senate for our website for this year. So otherwise, the agenda is as written.
You don't even see the agenda.
I am
Correct.
sitting by our substitute parliamentarian who informed me.
Don't worry.
So we don't need a motion to approve the agenda. We also don't need a motion to approve the minutes, but what I do want to ask. Go ahead, in the draft minutes, or you should have seen the draft minutes. Are there any errors, corrections, questions? Not questions, any corrections to the draft minutes? New senators, let me remind you, one of your key goals, and I've said this before, but one of your key objectives in looking at the minutes is to make sure that if you were present, you are listed as present. And if you were not present, you are listed as not present. Just check the attendance, right? But then also the discussion, anything else that's in there. So hearing no corrections, the minutes are approved. Our next agenda item is approving the curriculum consent calendar items from the November 7th and November 14th meetings of the college-wide curriculum committee. Before we have a motion to approve those calendar consent curriculum items, let me just point out that was a massive amount of material. I hope you at least read the summary statements that explained what's happening, what those changes are, and what was motivating them. Ideally, you would read all the documents too. But I want to acknowledge the horrendous, the monumentous amount of effort that went into preparing that material, starting with the faculty that created or amended the proposals, going up to the department curriculum committees that reviewed and the proposals, and then the college-wide curriculum committee that has to go over all of it, chaired by Priyantha. It's an amazing amount of work that went into that material. So that was my side comment. Now, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the curriculum committee. Luke, I move to approve, say, go ahead and. Great, and we know the dates. A second. Margaret, I saw Margaret's hand, thank you. Luke moved and Margaret seconded. So we will do, as is our tradition, a roll call vote to approve the curriculum. And that is on the secretary to read your name. When you hear your name, your vote is either aye, which means yes, or no for no. And as a reminder, the way the curriculum approval works in the Senate, if you have concerns or questions about a curriculum item, you need to bring it to the curriculum committee chair and to myself at least 48 hours in advance. Is it longer than that? 72 might be more accurate, but in advance by days of our meeting, so we can address it before we meet. So, so what's coming next is a roll call. The vote is to approve the curriculum items. When you hear your name, your vote is either aye for yes or no for no. And abstain is not an option. Is abstain an option?
It's an option.
Abstain is an option.
You don't announce it.
I
You
know.
should vote.
Okay.
Senator Princes,
Aye.
Senator Pappas,
Aye.
Senator Wright, Senator Cardillo, Senator Jimenez, Senator Hashim,
Aye.
Senator Marat, Senator John, aye. Senator Buckley Lockhart,
Aye.
Senator Skamaka,
Aye.
Senator Strike,
Aye.
Senator Hamilton, aye. Senator Davis Cooper, Senator Carvajal,
Aye.
Senator Ildefonso Sanchez, Senator Tolan,
Aye.
Senator Flores,
Online,
online,
Lisa, I don't know if she. We should sit, right?
Senator Sapolsky, aye. Senator Cleary.
Aye.
I'm gonna go with Senator Lockhart. I'll have to practice later. That's fine. Senator Sankhoff.
Aye.
Senator O'Sullivan.
Aye.
Senator Morales. Aye. Senator Kehoe. Aye. Senator Sonan.
Aye.
Senator Tubin. Senator Wang.
Aye.
Senator Johnson. Aye. Senator Lynn. Senator Rivera.
Aye.
Senator Siddick. Person Bruns.
Aye. I believe that means the curriculum consent calendar items from November 7th and November 14th, curriculum committee meeting are approved. And again, thank you, Priyantha, for all that work that put this together. All right. Moving on. The next matter on the agenda, I trust you read two documents. It is a resolution from Academic Affairs to close the counseling department. We need a motion to approve and a second, and then we can have some discussion. That would be the time if you have questions about this motion. If you didn't read the documents, you won't probably know what's going on. And you can go back and read the documents in your email as opposed to asking questions. If you read the documents and you still have questions, that's when to raise the question. So we need a motion to approve the resolution from Academic Affairs to close the counseling department. Abdul, as second, Patricia Sand first, Abdul did not say the motion, would you like to say? Great, 1 second. So is there any discussion? I'm just asked because she is a faculty member of the council.
So on the my understanding that this change would have gone into effect in September, but on the document, it says it's gonna be effective in March.
In March.
Yeah, so I just find
Any ideas, Billy?
it has to go to the board, of trustees, and so I would expect that probably is going to go into effect in September of 2025.
So, we approve it, but then it needs to be submitted as a resolution to the Board of Trustees and approved by the CUNY Board of Trustees. So changes like this have to go, before the CUNY Board of Trustees. Any other discussion? Okay. Then, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The motion is approved. Unanimously. And thank you, Billy and Dion for putting that, and Jeannie for suffering through it. for getting it together. Yeah, so in 10 minutes, President Adams is coming, he's coming at 2:45 for a follow-up discussion of the strategic plan. Because we've been very efficient, even with my late start. I am going to move the chair's report to this point in the committee, in the agenda, and then if there's still some time, we may have any committee reports that are while we're waiting for the next agenda item of the meeting. So this is my chair's report. One important informational item is that the date of commencement, which is listed in the academic calendar as tentative, has been changed. So instead of Saturday of June 21st, the date will be Friday, June 20th. And let me say a little bit about that. There's been much discussion at cabinet and among those planning commencement about the best day of the week for commencement to be held. There was even a survey of students, and the winning day, the students preferred, not by a wide margin, as I understand it, those who responded to the survey, was Saturday morning. That was something being considered. It was in the academic calendar for this academic year as Saturday, only because that date was the same corresponding date of last year, not to intentionally choose Saturday, but we had looked at Saturday as a possibility better for families to attend. That was actively considered. What happened, as I understand it, is that there are several staff members at the college who are essential for the running of commencement who have conflicts on that Saturday and could not attend. There was no way around it. So the date has been moved to Friday. There is still a search going on for a location, considering an alternative to Queens College. There's no report on that, but an effort is being made to see if there is a location that is closer to a subway line and that also might offer some covering in case of blazing sun like last year's commencement. Yeah.
It's the date grades are due.
Is it the date? It may be the date grades are due. I believe that, and I think that was, we did discuss that at cabinet. I think it is still the best option that could be identified for commencement. So I will make sure to mention again that that's the date that grades are due.
I'm just always curious, now that they're gonna be making the Greenway where 29th Street used to be, is there any possibility of ever having commencement in our parking lot to spill over onto 29th Street?
There it is.
Because there's no current covering there.
There's no current covering there, but it's easy to get to.
Yeah.
And so that is something to pass along to.
It is the answer.
The answer is no.
And the reason for it, we have 20 students with that, we thought about the parking lot. It just wouldn't be feasible. That's one, we have to have multiple graduations. on that one day.
Okay. Good idea. Any other questions about the commencement date? Sorry, and it is always a squeeze with commencement because of when grades are due and when the next semester starts and all of that. So it is a challenge to make it all work. So that is the change in commencement day, the change in the calendar. All right, another item in the chair's report. I wanted to let you know that the executive committee is discussing ways to make committee reports at Senate meeting more efficient so that so that the committee chairs are not feeling obligated to have a report at every meeting. So we'll have a proposal for you, probably not a proposal you necessarily need to approve, but just a better plan for how we handle committee reports at Senate meetings to help make them more efficient. Then one of those committees listed on the agenda is the Advising Council, a non-Senate committee. We have had, Jeannie has been serving as a Senate representative on Advising Council. She is not able to at this time because of a tiny scheduling conflict with class. So the executive committee is discussing better alternatives for how to keep Senate informed on the status of advising. The Advising Council meets often, every 2 weeks. Yeah.
Mentors, faculty mentors, meeting on Sundays and other weeks is just.
The advisory committee. So it is quite a time commitment, and it may not be the most effective way for Senate to stay informed with what's going on in advising at LaGuardia. So we're looking at some alternatives, including the possibility of a regular visit from like once a semester from whoever is heading advising, which means, and there's someone new coming in. Well, there's a position that's being hired for. The search is underway for, and what will that title be?
Assistant Dean.
Assistant Dean of Student Advising. For all of you, I'm sorry that we're short on chairs. We are trying to attract some more chairs. You're bringing some? Great. And thank you all for finding a place to sit and for turning out. So there is more work underway and discussion on keeping Senate informed of the work of advising at the college. Two more things, or the one more thing. Student Affairs is planning to form a new committee that will be a response to the presidential election, providing support to those who may be impacted either emotionally or in actual life situation. So that is underway, but it will likely start, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, after the inauguration. Part of the challenge is that no one knows what's going to happen. The college is awaiting guidance from CUNY on our approach to undocumented students, of which LaGuardia has some, right? And so that guidance is being sought and is not yet forthcoming. So, but I wanted you to know, as members of the Senate, that there is discussion and work being prepared to address whatever challenges may come as a result of the president. Yes, John? Can I elaborate? No, I cannot. I'm not sure I know anything more.
Just a point. I was at the University Faculty Senate last night, and so the chair of the Board of Trustees, William Thompson, spoke and was asked a question about CUNY's response to the issues that may arise with the next administration coming into place. And his answer was pretty much that New York is not going to budge. We have state laws, city laws, and we're going to abide by those laws. Although he did say he was a bit concerned with what the mayor said yesterday. So they said they're going to make sure, we follow the laws that New York has and continue to do that. The CUNY is on board to protect the students. How? It still remains like I don't know how much detail on that.
Yeah. So, and does anyone from Student Affairs have any more to say about the committee? Stuff. So just so that you know, there's effort there's attention being paid to the issue, and it will be forthcoming. And that is the last item on my chair report, which means it's perfect time for President Adams to arrive. And we are, thank you. Even though you're early, we are ready for you.
I'm trying to get shared.
Yeah, chairs have been requested. They've been requested and they are on their way.
Great.
because Douglas is sitting on the floor.
I see him back
Yeah.
there.
And others, and Hugo's standing. Sunil is standing. Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me. Christie, thanks for setting this up. I gave the latest version of the draft of the new strategic plan to Christie the other day, yesterday, sorry it didn't come out sooner, for her to circulate to everybody, and we wanted to be sure you all as senators had a chance this afternoon to and we'll just, I think the best way is to go the 5 pillars, just go to each pillar. Ask questions about what's already there in the draft. B, suggest things. It's not too late to throw ideas out there that we should add or at least consider. And we don't have a lot of time, but we'll just do that. And so last time I was here, I think I walked you through the process, the timing, what we're looking for, how it works. And I showed you a calendar of discussions and presentations in this really public process. And this was the last one in the calendar, December 4th. So here we go. And to everybody in the Zoom, hi, it's me. I'm saying here, but if you don't see me, I'm over at well, actually you will if the owl is working. I'll stand on the side here by Christie's laptop. And because the plant sale, art auction, and the faculty council holiday reception was so much fun, I ate them out you, but I didn't get to eat anything. So I have a cookie and I'm gonna eat my cookie and handle your question. So Chrissy, should we just start with
Yes.
access? Access is the first pillar. And we have to be careful because there's only so much time, so we can't spend 45 minutes of access and leave the other 4 pillars, hanging out there. Well, who wants to go first? And you're allowed to sit, you can say whatever you want.
Yep, I'm gonna
Chrissy's gonna do that.
try to master all of these technology things at once. So, and so far, okay, hold on. We're getting there. Okay, so you're asking for questions and comments about access section.
Yeah, and I will recap just to say that at this point, after the open house 2 Fridays ago, where we had 109 recommendations, that process at least got us down to 75. So not that I'm asking you to count this, but we have the 5 pillars, 19 goals, and 75 recommendations for actions. We probably won't have 75 in the end because that's a little unwieldy. We'll move some to kind of what we call the to-do list, like they're just things we have to do and we commit to doing them. As a reminder, and just point of comparison, the strategic plan that's ending now, 2019 to 2024, also had 5 broad goals, quite similar to this, obviously. But only, I counted last night, 23 recommendations. So 23 to 75 is, but this is a different type of plan. It's really an apple. It's a different type of plan. This is a plan that includes an operating plan. Other typical plans often are just sort of set of goals, but no kind of path to get there. This is about how to get there. So access.
So, and let me just add, I can't put the whole thing on the screen. So if you have it on your device, on your phone, or print it out, I know Elizabeth has just a few copies, but better to look on, or if you came with comments.
Yeah.
Patricia?
I just have a question in general, that applies to all the pillars. So there is you had mentioned the fact that there would be accountability, like who's responsible for something. But there are no measures, like when you say increase enrollment, increase.
Yeah, Patricia, great, very, very good question, and it's sort of a process issue. That's by design, because the next step, when we kind of clear the 75 or whatever ultimate number is what I call the NAVA test. So Navalera and her team, Ahmad and Mohammed and IR, I will sit with them and they will look at each of the proposals and ask them, and they will sort of make a determination. Can this actually be measured in a relatively simple way? This is something as PMP data, for example, graduation rate, stuff. How would we measure it? Is it measurable? Number one. Number two, what's the baseline? Where are we? We'll probably take like January 1st, 2025. What's the baseline? And then what's the target? The target I negotiate with people I hold accountable, which are the VPs that, if you think about access, that's really Ben Roden, right? So in the end, there'll be for the things we want to do. There'll be a discussion there with Ben and his team about, well, what's the 5-year goal? And then Nava says, oh, okay. And then she agrees on how to measure it. And this will all go on the website, in a new section of the website in the new year. So in real time, people can always look at how we're doing. That's why 75 is a lot. Because, and some metrics will cover, as in the last plan, something like year-over-year retention rates actually applies to lots of different items. So you don't have to have 75 metrics because some repeat. But that, we're not there yet, right? So everything here has to be assigned, so there's accountability. And then it has to be measurable per NAVA. And then there has to be a baseline, and then a goal is negotiated for the timeline required. Not everything takes 5 years to do.
Lovely.
On number 5 of access, but it does appear several times in the document, and speaking for academic affairs, if I may. I do get concerned every time it says increase faculty something. And my concern is, of course, with the current rates of burnout, we don't want to solely increase faculty work, but we don't want to increase staff work either. And I would rather see a process improvement where faculty and staff work together. We find the best process to do this work. Because I think we need to take that all into consideration. And to Jill's point from last meeting, we're talking about re-engaging faculty. Just be clear that it's not the faculty that are already volunteering. It's re-engaging those faculty that have stepped aside for us, and we want them to know.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, it's a great point. Do you want to?
I can help. you.
John.
John, and then, Shannon after that.
John.
Okay, so my question, as usual, goes back to the Middle State Self-Study Report. And I noticed in looking at the previous strategic plan and this strategic plan, the word assessment only appears once in both plans. But in the Middle State Self-Study Report, in a summary, it appears over half a dozen times. And I'm wondering if you can talk about how the values of assessment as a goal in the Middle State Self-Study Plan to assess things, and how assessment with different processes will be reflected in the strategic plan, or you know, you can sort of shed the light on that, where that would come into play, and how that would be an important part.
Yeah, super important. Thanks, John. Thanks for raising it again. It's on kind of the NAVA agenda right now. NAVA will check for Middle State's alignment, and the way Billy checks for misalignment, and I check for alignment with the chancellor's plan, because we don't do this in a vacuum. We have to coordinate with these other plans. So I'll double check that with NAVA. But yeah, just what we were saying in answer to Patricia's question about being really transparent, having baselines, having targets, and being really clear about how we're doing. Obviously, that's important in Middle States, and sort of we're going to redesign the AES assessment, the AES process, right? NAVA has a process that she inherited from the prior plan of everything but academic assessment, right? The non-academic administrative units that do their annual planning, and that whole process, that whole evaluation process, we're going to redo to coordinate with this plan. And I think that should satisfy a lot of what Middle States is looking for outside of the academic assessment. Academic assessment happens, you know, program review happens over more as a matter of course, but yeah, I'll double check that with NAVA.
Janet.
My question has to do with the different types of the population that you mentioned. We talked about high school students, non-traditional, international students. And I know generally speaking, what we're talking about is what's there, but do we need to specifically talk about the population where they're not technically international students, but they have these national credentials, but they are green card holders, US citizens, that sort of thing? The reason I'm bringing it up, if you look at the data, we do have a lot of those students who apply to LaGuardia, who face these administrative barriers, and I know we talked about cutting down some of these barriers lower down, but I just kind of want to make sure that, you know, it's not lumped in with the other ones because they don't fit nicely into those fields. Do we need to specifically kind of point to that?
You're talking about high school credential reviews for F1 visa students?
Yeah. Students are here in the United States, whether they're a green card holder or a US citizen, who were educated outside the US, so they don't need a F1 visa.
Got it, but they still have a foreign credential. Right,
So
and we still have that problem you and I have talked about many times of sending them downtown and waiting.
8 months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, good. Thanks.
So, moving on to the next pillar, if that's okay, unless you, Kenneth wants to say anything
Nope.
about this?
So I'm here for, by the way, Jessica's taking notes too, because I know that you see us both writing, and so we capture this.
Thank you. Questions, comments, observations, additions, suggestions about, the teaching and learning pillar?
This, as you're thinking about this one, this obviously is, fundamental. It may have the most amount of material and actual, suggestions still. There was a big turnout at the open house. We had over 100 people, and importantly, a very big turnout of faculty, including faculty who weren't able to come when we did the event in the spring. So Eric Hoffman, who ran these groups, had his hands full with lots of new people and lots of new input. And so this section, I had hoped the sections would kind of shrink a little bit. This one grew, but it grew in many good ways. Remember, part of this exercise, and Billy's sitting here too with the same question in her mind, which is, what have we missed? What's not here? And you don't have to say with precision, or you can throw out a general idea or observation. We'll do the homework.
John asked you a question earlier.
Which one?
The one about what advising is doing in teaching and learning.
Okay, that was my other question. I thought it was so advising seems
So,
to be.
no, nobody else has a question and it's worth asking.
All right, so
Ask anyway.
so then my question would be about advising doesn't seems to fit a lot more in student support when I'm reading it as just a person reading the whole thing. Like that sounds a lot like student support, not so much teaching and learning. Because the teaching and learning is like stuff we do in class.
There,
Yeah.
you gave an easy answer, which maybe you're not thinking of right now. Maybe it's not correct.
Well, advising is in academic affairs,
It-
administrative.
That is it,
Yeah.
That,
So that I think by now, I mean, people know that we made that change a couple of years ago. Where we moved advising from student affairs to academic affairs under our provost. In part, John, because we wanted to have closer coordination between all of our advisors and faculty. Faculty as mentors, faculty advisors, and just closer partnerships and coordination around advising around content, information. Same thing when we've asked all 37 advisors now to be transfer advisors, that they get content, that they get support, that they get, right? So that's why, thank you, Christy, for the reminder, but that's why it's in that section.
yeah.
And,
So,
and this is like, one could argue, Billy could argue, well, doesn't that create a higher level of accountability for the provost? It does, and your provost is willing to take that on. I mean, she has for last year, so. And we think it's working.
yeah, so this is not, because when I saw teaching and learning also, I thought what happens in classrooms, but it is actually broader. It's looking at things that are under academic affairs. Thomas and then Lou.
So that's one of teaching and learning to become a model for student success. I'm looking at some of them, unless my brain's not working correctly. Some of these don't look like, I understand what they're there, like letter H, schedule classes and support services based on student demand. How's that high impact practice? And how do we become a model for student success by doing that? I don't get a lot of the points in this category.
In this, remember when I said that this one actually grew a little bit as the result of the open house? So most of the leading ideas, there was a scoring system and there's a whole point system, and we did the math, and really Leo did. So a lot of what you're seeing here rose to the top because people scored it at the open house. We hadn't done a scoring, like a ranking. Everything had been more random before. And some ideas stayed. I will be honest with you, this one did, because back in May, people who participated in the group highlighted it, and it didn't seem right to make it go away. It came down in the ranking. You see it's at the bottom of the list. It used to be higher. So and that is on the list because many people in the course of this process have had different ways of saying basically the same thing, which is we're here to serve our students, and we need to make sure we're offering classes and sections when they can go to school, when they can study as working students, most of them are. And so that one just has never gone away, to be honest with you. And it applies to, you'll see it comes up almost in similar language, under student support, that students need childcare on weekends. We don't have that. It's very expensive. It's gonna be hard to do. Some of this is gonna be hard to do. Students need at least online support, different types of support on nights and weekends, and in-person support Like, should the LaGuardia Cares food pantry be open till 10 o'clock at night on Thursdays, you know? It's a staffing issue, but I can promise you there's students that wish it were.
Luke, yeah.
So in number 2 of this section, there's mention of professional development for the advisors in conjunction with faculty mentors, advisors or staff. And this is an issue that we talk about a lot on committees that share both faculty and staff membership, including the CTL Advisory Committee. The idea of the disparities that exist in terms of opportunity for staff to participate in professional development versus the opportunities that exist for faculty. We know that there are rare opportunities in the evening or on weekends outside of staff working hours from 9 to 5. Staff are not able to be compensated for participating in professional development in the way that faculty are. So I'm hoping that, you know, the mention of it here, and I think one other place in the document addresses the disparity that exists just in terms of options and equity for staff to participate in professional.
Yeah, Luke, thank you. That's spot on. I mean, I'm making so much of that, and we have to be clear about that here, right? Yeah.
And let me just say as a reminder, we have until 3:15, at which time we have another presentation scheduled. So 15 more minutes. So we'll keep going, but I just wanted to tell you all can help hold us accountable.
This is the biggest, longest pillar. So maybe is there anyone else who has comments on teaching and learning? There are 3 more to go, but they're a little more, some are, Mr. Lund.
A lot of increase enrollment, increase the first year seminar.
What, make you nervous? It makes you nervous, huh?
That's great. It's wonderful. Does it mean also an increase in the class offerings? Because sometimes we see that, you know, in terms of registration, that we don't always have that class that's offered for that student and.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure, like, we're increasing students, but are we also increasing the class?
Adding sections, and yeah. No, it's a great operational point. And not lost on the adjuncts that came to the breakfast event that we did earlier this week, who are always obviously looking for work and for us to add sections as the enrollment recovers. So yeah, great. And I know Billy's got that, and great point.
Elizabeth.
Okay, so I see in 1C that one of the goals, of course, is to increase enrollment in the first year seminar, and that brings me to, I know the first year seminar covers a lot of these things, but I'm always struck when I meet a student who'll say something like, we don't have higher level math classes here, right? It's only a community college. But no, we have calculus 1, calculus 2, all sorts of things that I've never taken and probably never will, and hopefully not. And so there has to be more. I think Maddie might kill me if I say this out loud in my office, but I think there might be even more need to really blanket the college and blanket our students with information about the opportunities we have here.
Yeah.
They don't always seem to know about all of our majors. But we have a major, teacher major in mechanical engineering. What? We have that happens all of the
This came up, you know, going back to May a lot, Elizabeth, also in student support in, you know, what do we do to make sure students, sometimes evening students or students who just don't have a lot of time on campus because they're working or have families, are fully aware of all the support that's available. It's heartbreaking to find a student who didn't know there were health services, who didn't know there was childcare, who didn't know there was one. So point well taken, and there are going to be communication goals coming out of this that are more part of the work plan, you know, for just good communication, but you're right.
Ingrid, and then.
Ingrid was plus. Ingrid's patient.
I just want to go back to first year seminar, again, to say this enrollment in first year seminar, which may increase classes over and for into your seminar. How are we going to find, professors that actually want to?
Right.
I am the liaison and I cannot find professors to teach first year seminar classes,
Yep.
the ones that we have now.
Right.
So how am I going to find professors to do that? So that's one question. The last one, increased opportunity for experiential learning, which is fantastic. It's worth great, but we need funding for that, right?
Right.
A lot of stuff requires funding. Does that mean that?
Yep. On the latter one, and funding comes up in a lot of these, and I mentioned what I call the NAVA test, where we look for metrics. Is it measurable? The Shahir test comes after that, which is, can we pay for it? And if he says no, then it's the Laura Kenneth J test, can we raise the money for it? So for example, if we commit to increasing stipends for students in experiential learning activities, then we're committing to raise the money for it. We can't have a goal in the plan that we're not committed to executing. And if we feel really like, there's a goal that's just too lofty and we really can't afford it, it won't go in the plan. So absolutely. And on the first piece, if we commit to more sections, it means certain departments will have to really step up, right? First year summer is not easily accessible by all students in all majors. It's inconsistent, despite all the very positive things I said about it on the 10th anniversary building. So if we commit in the plan, Billy will work with chairs will work with faculty. Billy and I have a concept of what we call default FYS. If a department doesn't have enough, we'll make it up and we'll hire agents to teach it. Because it's wrong, students don't have that information, just to Elizabeth's point. Yeah.
Erica and then Jill.
President Adams, I'm just curious, how much data has been used to confirm what the needs are?
It depends on the pillar. So a lot of, remember I said we don't do this in a vacuum. So we have a lot of data from Central that has really driven the CUNY Lifting New York plan, which is the Chancellor's plan. Our work with NIST, the National Institute for Student Success, that Billy led, is all data driven. And again, shout out to Nava and her team. We're always looking at what we used to call the PMQ metrics around student success and where we've been and what's going on. And that's sort of the baseline that drives a lot of this. Some of the dashboards at CUNY Central have been changed. Some of the way we access the information is changing. There's some new people at the office that does all the data collection under Colin Shelman, who's a great guy who's been on campus. We actually have access now to more data than we probably ever had. Sometimes we have to push central office to get it, but Nava's very good at that. And so there's a lot of data baked into this. The tricky part is going to be making sure we can get the data to track progress.
Particularly at locally.
We're gonna pick, this is, again, Nava does this, not me. We're gonna pick things she's confident we can get the data locally.
Jill, and then Jean.
Talking about data, so data is mentioned twice in the teaching and learning section about data to identify barriers to progression and data-informed intervention practices. But I want to pick up on what Shannon's talking about. We need more data, and we need data provided consistently to make better scheduling choices. Every semester that I make the schedule, I go back and I look at the reports given to me by my administrative staff about enrollment numbers and class cancellation times, which do not accurately reflect the number of students that are in those courses when the courses start, especially first year seminar, because they're plugging those students in until the very last minute. So, I get a message from Ben saying we have a dozen criminal justice students who couldn't, get into a class. I have no idea. I have no idea what my numbers are. So if you want us to make better schedules that fit the needs of our students, we need to have data that's regularly given to us while we're making the schedule. So we can make a schedule that fits the needs of our students, which includes scheduling the right amount of first year seminar courses.
Okay, super helpful. Billy, yeah. What's the new platform students are going to be using?
It's Course Dog.
It's
It's in use in some capacity now, but the university is buying a new module so that data that you're describing, Jill, can be provided to program directors and others who are doing scheduling, so that the predictability of enrollment is based on the classes students have already taken and passed. So based on a conversation I was a part of, the expectation is this will be available to campuses in the fall. So that may not impact, obviously that'll impact scheduling further out from that, but at least.
The next fall 25.
Right.
It's like Course Dog 2.0. So much more sophisticated.
And I'll gladly offer more sections, but I also.
You need to know.
Give sections
Right.
that won't fill, so you kind of hesitant. And then you get this email saying, oh, by the way, nobody was able to get into your first year seminar. So, wait, I could have used that information 2 weeks ago, so I could have had more sections. So we gotta figure out a better way.
Let's, for sake of time, with 2 more questions about teaching and learning, then we need to move on to the other pillars or anything more general. But Judy, go ahead and then.
Mine's sort of general, like a lot of these ideas are wonderful.
makes me think about funding them. If there's no fund, then are they even achievable? So like I was thinking about, if you increase advisement services from Saturday to Saturdays and evenings, but we have the same staff. Now you're causing a different problem because now you have fewer people that in.
Right.
So.
Again, Billy and I will sit with Shahir before this thing sees the light of day. This is a draft, because we probably can't afford all of this, at least not in the next, it's a 5-year plan. So there could be things where we say, if enrollment continues to recover, that's right. Hopefully, right? Yeah. If we, because we still have a deficit, right? So if we can kind of crunch that, eliminate the deficit and get on firmer financial footing, maybe a couple of these things don't happen until year 3 or year 4 or year 5. It is a 5-year plan. And so, Shahir gets very nervous when I have these meetings. I say, we can't do everything. And so we have to be mindful of the resources available and prioritize things.
Just to piggyback Joe's question and comment, does part of that data include, continual status updates about the enrollment numbers in courses throughout the enrollment period?
I'd rather be inundated with data to make decisions based on actual information than guessing.
Right, because a lot of that is inconsistent and depending on the discipline, the program, the department, some areas are really, kind of militant about checking their numbers multiple times throughout the enrollment period.
Right.
And other instances occur when, sections of one class are all closed and someone calls the department and says, hey, we need sections. Maybe there can be.
I think it's a lot of.
Systematic.
I think this will help because the new course dog helps you predict, it helps you see trends while they're happening in real time, as opposed to looking back.
Right.
So
Just
I
in
wanna,
terms of on the ground.
Yeah.
As things are closing.
Well,
I wanna
Yeah.
move this along, because we have three more sections, codes up today. So I scroll up to, student success, which is pillar number 3, student support, excuse me. Any comments, questions, additions, Patricia and then Jill?
Question as, some of us represent the FYS.
You're in trouble. You're in
What have
trouble
you
with
been
them.
doing?
give her a big shout out.
Across your experience.
Which one are you, which one is yours?
So you Patricia picked up on a detail here that came out of the open house, this concept of FYE, first year experience. And it's just a concept, right? But the concept is to think that for new students, getting acclimated to LaGuardia, figuring out how LaGuardia and CUNY work, figuring out transfer pathways, figuring out what is more than, that it's more than the first year seminar. And so that you would have, first year seminar doesn't change. The idea is thinking about, is about not thinking about it in isolation of other things that happen, for example, in student support.
I think because you're calling it the FYS, if you call it the FYE, then you.
Wait, where is that?
It does say,
Yeah.
FYE that includes.
Yeah, but that includes the FYS, but in the FYS is your FYE first year experience. It does go curriculum learning.
Well, no, but as just an example that came out of the workshop, if they were doing a series of events in CCPD on career planning and career readiness, right? And let's say that's not part of your FYS. It isn't in every instance. The idea is that for a student, there are more things than FYS that are important to a good start, right?
I think the problem is that we offer an FYE already. An FYE exists, and the language that's listed here is, I would say, upsetting to the people who have been working on that FYE for years now, because the language makes it seem like we are creating one when we have been at our meetings, all the people here who are in the first year seminar have been struggling to maintain an FYE with disinterested faculty, limited resources,
Right.
and pathetic student participation. So I agree that the FYE is not where it needs to be, but the language to develop one, I think, would make Ellen cry. But I think that,
She was.
support
Got it.
So,
Let's-
something needs to be tweaked.
Develop is not the right word.
Yeah.
Develop is the wrong word, right? But, but and I'm just the messenger here. Develop is the wrong word. Got it. Duly noted, Jill. But, just to defend the people who were talking about this the other day, their sense was, there are a lot of activities out of the classroom that are super helpful to students as they learn to navigate the college that should be thought of broadly as part of a first year experience, right? That's all. That was the concept. And so in different parts, I mentioned CCPD, but in student life, a whole bunch of other things that happen that if students get exposed to them early on, is only going to benefit the student. And that was the idea. But we won't say develop, we'll say, right?
Yeah.
Figure out a better way.
Anything else?
That was good. That was good.
It was important, for sure. Anything else? Yes.
Loretta.
Develop a culture, a student culture of all of us participate, and that they are aware of opportunities on the campus. I worked in a previous institution where our incoming students, one of their orientation activities was that they actually signed a pledge that they were going to read their student email, that they were going to, it was very targeted, it was only 6 points, but that they knew that they had a responsibility to be participatory.
Right.
And that kind of cultural expectation might raise them and will absolutely help their success of full.
Yeah, great. That's a super good point. That's super helpful.
Anything else on student
Student
support?
support. Denise is here, so now's your chance.
I was also thinking, I have a number of things, but I was gonna say that I think we should also add increased support for club activities, student clubs, organizations, extracurricular activities. We also should seek to expand curricular activities and opportunities for students. We should also expand professional development opportunities for students as it relates to co-curricular and extracurricular activities. That's my success.
Great.
All right, done. I just added it.
All right, I'm gonna rush us along.
DEI is
DEI.
largely the work of Professor Lena Koyat and a team of people did a lot of work going back to the spring.
And we have a brief bit of time, so
Yeah,
thoughts, suggestions, questions, we got time for this?
there's not much here that should be new, really. We've been trying to do this work. It's been reprioritized, reorganized, there's some new ideas, but this is about execution, right? Getting it done.
All right, hearing none, nothing. I'm going on to then
Last one.
career success.
Who's here from CCPD?
Comments, questions, suggestions? On career success, the last one, are you missing a page?
There,
5 pages, I believe.
this is another one where, pillars are arbitrary. They're things that kind of get repeated or blend over. So there's a lot here on experiential learning and internships and stipends for internships that could have gone into teaching and learning. It comes up a little bit there. So some of the DEI initiatives come up in multiple places. The communication initiatives, Elizabeth talked, really need to come up across. Some of these things have to kind of come up. But in the end, operationally, like who's doing the work, things are put in a pillar. And frankly, pillars, you can imagine the staffing for this, right? There's a VP called VP Sunil Gupta who oversees all the CCPD work, right? There are people who are, there's McLean and so on. Oh, there he is. Oh, I didn't know you were in the room. How do you feel about this? Good. Well, I hope you're staff and everybody who works. Good work. Leslie.
Really quick, can we add alumni support?
Yes.
And encouraging and engaging with our alumni.
Totally. Excellent idea. In fact,
Jill.
In point 3, there's no mention of kind of unifying or communicating better between career services and faculty. I know that they want increased student awareness of what career services has to offer, but I think there's a big gap between what CCPD does and faculty, and we're kind of the ones that push our students to get involved. mean, today there was FDNY and Cadet Corps downstairs in the C building, and I had no idea they were gonna be there. And I would think that criminal justice would be the target group.
Right.
But if CCPD could send out, saying, here are the people that we have scheduled to faculty, to encourage the students to go, that could be helpful.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you.
Out there.
Anything else? On career services, or whatever it's called.
Career support, or student support. Oh, no, sorry.
Career success. Okay, anything else overall, in general, feedback, questions, suggestions? Brett?
I didn't see anywhere in here about outreach to encourage dropouts to return. Somewhat in light of connect, but often CCPD or experiential learning is difficult to get them back. Our success is their success.
Yeah, that's a great, I made a note of it, it's great, it's a good, really good catch, we should have had that. And part of it is, if you saw my remarks earlier, the tremendous success of our CPL office, where we do credit for player learning assessment, Marshall Oropesa. And they do a lot of outreach to stopouts. But I don't know how thorough, I'm assuming, in other words, they're going out to people who left, not just LaGuardia, but, we can get lists of students who stopped out of other community schools. And, would you like to come back? And what have you been doing since? And maybe there's a way that you can get a jump start because we can give you credit for prior learning. But as an enrollment strategy for Shannon and Ben and their colleagues here, you're spot on. And CUNY, by the way, people talk about CUNY Reconnect, and I was at an event yesterday with Council Speaker Adrienne Adams, and she really was force behind that program and got the money for it and gave it, and 40,000 students have, Shannon knows the numbers, have come back to CUNY because of that one program, CUNY Reconnect. What I didn't know until Speaker Adams mentioned it yesterday is that 3,000 of them have graduated already. It's only 2 years old, the program, right? So 3,000 have came back and have already gotten their whatever, their master's or their baccalaureate or their associate's degree. There are over 700,000 people in New York City with some college credit, no degree. It's actually a national phenomenon. Lots of people in this country go to college because we don't go to it. Most people don't. Certainly, that's true of community colleges, 4-year schools. So great point, thank you.
Sarah?
One last question. In these opportunities for the experiential learning, just to be mindful that the jail office plus the COIL and the LaGuardia Humanitarian Initiative, we also provide the platform on the experiential learning, but again, that lacks funding.
Yes, and this is a great point that Billy and I talked about on Monday afternoon. In the document, there have been areas that said internships, apprenticeships, internships. And Billy brought up, well, what about COIL? What about, experiential learning that isn't a traditional internship per se? So we've been changing the language to more often say experiential learning. So it's a bigger umbrella, but point well taken, yeah, money. So again, we're not gonna, this is the thing, that's what we'll say, right? There's still 75 things here. We're gonna do what, there's consensus to do, which is growing through this process, but what Nava says we can measure and where I can assign accountability so stuff gets done and there are resources, including staff, and that she here says we can pay for it, or we can almost pay for it, and we'll have to force ourselves to raise some money, that's okay too. But that's how, in the end, that's what you'll see. Something that is this is supposed to be, in my view anyway, I really want this to be a working plan that we can all look at and that we can all make contributions to. Everyone has a role in this plan over the next 5 years. And if we do the work, because of this process, if we do the work, we will move the needle on student success. That means our graduation rate, our retention rate. More students who come here will get what they came here for. That is the simple goal. But they will get it in an equitable way, right? Certain students won't get all the benefits. Certain students won't get all the challenges, right? We'll smooth it out so that more students leave LaGuardia with what they came here for, feeling good about their next step in life, wherever we're able to, help them get to, but that's having in a fair and equitable way. Equitable success for more students is the point of the plan. And I'm convinced, having spent many, many months as your editor-in-chief and pulling all this together, that this is the ingredients. And unlike plans from every other school I've looked at, which are many, this is a real working plan. That's why there's 75 recommendations, you know, and not 15 or 22 lofty statements. That's why this all gets assigned to people to do the work and resources get distributed accordingly to do the work. Most plans don't bother to do that. There's a lofty statement and a lot of the royal we will do this, we will do that. And then it goes on the shelf, and then what doesn't happen, what will happen? Or, you know, it's supposed to happen by some collective kind of magic. No, I don't think this is that complicated, and this doesn't take magic, it takes work and, yeah, resources.
There was one more hand. Luke.
Then we'll go to the chat.
And then, I think I've been looking at the chat. And then we're done with this. Yeah.
One last thing real quick, because it's only alluded to in the plan. Really targeted support for students who are academically at risk, you know, probation, teetering around a 2.0. And I guess the collaborative effort from other areas on what that means for students, right? Satisfactory academic progress and financial aid eligibility, tuition liability, right? All of those kind of domino effects of students who are, you know, ultimately prevented from continuing because they're not making academic.
I have a favorite metric from one of those, which I know you're well aware of, which is reducing the number of students that owe us money because they dropped a class after drop out and they had to pay back their Pell Grant and no one ever told them that was going to happen. You know how many students have debt in this college because they dropped too late, and then Shahir, under federal law, has to go after them for the Pell equivalent for the credits that they're no longer going to get. Like, they buy credits and they're getting it, right? And they don't know that. And then when they get ready for the next semester, boom, there's a burst our hole. Why? We can't let that happen. And we have to take the needle of how many students that happens to every semester. And much better information, much better training, much better understanding of the consequences of making that decision. So you're absolutely right. We can measure that.
Good. All right. On that note, if you think of anything later.
Yeah. Christine.
I'll forward it all your way.
See each other almost every Monday. Enjoy.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Next.
Gotta go back and do some editing.
Yeah, next on the agenda is the presentation on the budget from Anthony and Shahir. You're on.
Patricia's gonna start, but she's on.
Thank you, Patricia.
So quickly, you're going to set up?
Folks, slow, so.
So, we had planned to do a presentation that would have been more an educational presentation of the budget, but because of time constraints, what we're going to do is present the budget that the way, just to present the finances of the school for 2024 and 2025. We'll come back in the spring and do an educational presentation about the budget. I just want to highlight the members of the budget committee that we have, because this year we also have 2 students, which is the first time ever that we actually have students in the budget committee. We have a meeting next week. You'll get the agenda very soon. So here's the committee. Some of us have been on that committee for quite a while and very happy to stay there. So we keep going. Of course. Yeah, Anthony, that's what I was going to say. Anthony, Shahir and Carmen have no other way but to be on the committee. The rest of us choose to stay on the committee. So I just wanted to say that, and then I'll turn it over to Anthony, who's the he's the money guy. So he's going to do a much better job than if I were to run through those slides. So
And you are not sharing it for the Zoom people. So you need to go, yeah. If you should be able to go into the Zoom screen. Oh, please back up again.
And just as since I was at the UFS yesterday and the chairman of the board of trustees was there, he said that CUNY is optimistic from the state proportion of the funding, which they think, came back, but the city, they're not that optimistic. So they keep pressuring the city council, the council members, because the city of all the pegs that were restored, the 2 things that were not restored for CUNY and the parks in July. So they're trying to really get the city to come forward with more money, and that's harder, but on the other hand, the state is really coming along. So we'll see what the budget has been submitted, right? CUNY submitted its budget for next year, and now we'll see what.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right, so today I'm gonna go over several things. So the first thing I'll talk about is how we ended for fiscal 24. Then I'll go into what fiscal 25 looks like, so our projected financial position. Then I'll show you how that's broken down by division, so everyone knows who spent what. And then lastly, I'll talk about how we're spending per major expense category. And then, of course, we'll give you a time to put us on the spot and grill us, and anything I don't want to answer, I will bring that guy over. So first thing is how we ended in fiscal 24. So fiscal 24, we had a budget, a tax levy budget of $127 million. That's made up of city and state funding in addition to anything we collect for student tuition. So we have to collect about almost 50% of what our allocation is. We need to burn off delayed or anyone who pays out of pocket, grant, and all that. Then we have our tuition revenue above our target. So our target for fiscal 24 was 41.4 million, and we collected 44.8 million. So we over collected by 3.4 million. That's attributed to two things. One, an increase in student enrollment, so good job, and collecting for prior year. Yes.
They're not following on the shared screen. So the share screen is not moving.
Oh,
So,
I'll let you.
well, I don't really know. That's, I know. Does anybody?
Anybody?
I'm gonna, I have now just moved it around. So you need to. Sorry, thank you for pointing that out. And pardon us while we figure it out. Okay.
See now?
So, you know, we might be,
That's fiscal 24 now.
try, advance to the next. Now we can see. Oh, that's good. You can try. Yeah, the whole, that's that.
But, you see it now? Yeah. Yeah.
Take a photo. Okay, the photographer's here. While they figure this out, let's take a photo of members of Senate. There. So, if you are not a member of Senate, stay where you are. If you are a senator or an alternate senator, go outside with the photographer. But be quick about it because we have more meeting to go. Oh, and I'm pausing. What am I doing?
You just, if there's no objection, 10-minute recess.
10-minute recess to the meeting.
But before going outside the phone. No, it's not.
Well, I have to be here. I have 2 observations tomorrow. That's tomorrow's not. I'll fancy.
By the way, I'm at the IT conference for the next 2 days.
Which one?
Figure out some things that I'm gonna go with, Daisy.
Oh,
See what
it's just view that.
bring to HRIS.
Side presentation. I'm sure they have some. There you go.
Actually, even my.
That's what I'm looking for.
So they asked him to present, and he said he's not ready because they asked him to present, 'cause apparently he's the only college so far that actually has brought in what they call an actual AI computer. So Central found out and they were like, we want you to present on it. And he says, I haven't taken it out of the box yet. So there is a professor who is doing a presentation. So he asked Greg to be on the panel with him to talk about what he expects to do with it. So hopefully we'll see what happens. Maybe we can learn something.
It's difficult to network with folks, maybe we'll.
Oh, of course.
I think we're really to accept the comment.
Yeah. No. Understood. I've been talking to our team about how we have the people, we need to empower the people within our department. So, yeah. Yeah.
All right, here.
You're back.
All right. As soon as everyone finds their seat, we're resuming the meeting. And thank you all for doing that.
I'm sorry.
I actually said it.
No.
All right.
Well, you
Yeah, either way.
Motorcycle.
Stop your chatting, we're meeting at Zoom.
She got it done in 2 minutes.
Meeting. Good. I forgot to recess the meeting, so I can't restart the meeting, but the meeting is restarted. And we are returning to the presentation. Anthony, thank you for bearing with us while we did that. And everybody find a seat, and we are on.
Okay, where was I? We have no money. I mean. All right, so. Yeah, so we over collected by 3.4 million. Our total resources was 130.9. Our expenses, our full-time expenses were 91 million. Our teaching adjuncts are 20 million. The temp services, which are college assistants and non-teaching adjuncts, are 7.8 million for a total of 119. Our OTPS, or other than personnel services, is 17.3 million for a grand total of 136.7 million, which left us with a $5.8 million deficit. How did we cover that? We covered that through our cash reserve that's held by CUNY. So we had about $18 million in cash reserve. So with the 5.8 gone, we have about approximately $12 million starting for this fiscal year.
So we're rich.
No. We are not rich. Oh, so 25. So our CUNY allocation is 113.5. This includes a one-time $2 million PEG restoration that the city had previously cut. So that's one time. So just think of, you'll see the deficit at the bottom, 3.7 million. That's technically would be closer to 6 million if we didn't get that one-time PEG restoration. We also have in here 1.6 million in the DC 37 contract that was ratified, which should be paid out sometime soon. And then we have about $600,000 that we get reimbursed from the DOE for the high schools that use our campus resources and our space. Our tuition revenue above target, we project to collect about 1.7 million. Our new revenue target, because we over collected last year, is 45 million. So we'll collect one. See it? Yeah. So 1.7. Yep. Okay, and then we have our restricted programs, which total about $23 million. The restricted programs are ASAP, Power Discovery, CUNY Start, Math Start, all of our regular reoccurring programs. Also has other things in there that may be one time or several years, such as small grants that we get, or CUNY initiatives and strategic investment initiatives, transformational investment initiatives, all that stuff is built in. So our total estimated revenue is 138.7. Our full-time PS is about 98.8 million. It's a big jump from prior year. It includes step increases for PSC members and the DC 37 contract ratification. Our adjuncts and part-timers is 27.3. OTPS is about 16.2 for a total of 142.4. And our deficit is about $3.7 million. How will we cover that? A $12 million cash reserve held by CUNY. Okay. Now let's take a look at the budgets broken down by division. So academic affairs being our biggest. This is broken down into two columns. You'll see on the left, it says unrestricted. On the right, it says restricted. Unrestricted is made up of our base budget. So this is the money that I was talking about earlier that's given to us by the city, state, and collected by, student tuition revenue, right? And restricted is anything that's additional, addition that comes in. So if the money comes in, we expect it to be spent, so it has no bearing on the deficit. So I like to look at those, two separately. And we get a kind of a clearer picture of where the real percentages are. So academic affairs is about $70 million for 60% of the budget. Administration, 21.8 at 18% of the budget. ACE, this doesn't include their non-credit bearing side, that's about $3 million, but that's separate. 5.6 or 5% of the budget. Communication and external affairs, 1.5 million for 1%. Enrollment management, 7.2 at 6%. Executive, 3.7 at 3. IT, even though they're part of administration, I like to break them out because they're separate major purpose for the college. A little over $4 million at 3%. Student affairs, 4.1 at 3%. For a total of our base budget of 119. And on the right, it's restricted. I'll let you kind of look at that. I won't go. So you can kind of see where we stand in terms of the percentages and how they're affected by each of the categories. All right, and then last but not least, how we spend per major expense category. Our PSC, which is our faculty, HEOs, CLTs, is 69 million. Again, I broke it down by unrestricted and restricted, so you can kind of see where how the percentages adjust. So they're 58% of our budget. ECP, which is the executives, deans, assistant deans, vice president, etc. 3.2 million at 3%. Civil service at 17.5%. That's your COAs, your cleaners, public safety at 15%. One thing to note here, we do have about $3.9 million that's buried into OTPS for our building maintenance guys. They're paid on the OTPS, but since they're really a salary, we make that adjustment. So if you ever see anything published by CUNY, it'll be the opposite. Our other PS is about a little under $1 million. Other PS are various differentials, shift differential, longevity differential, education differential, overtime, etc. Adjunct teaching is 17.1 at 14%. Our non-teachings is 1.4. College assistants are 4.1 for a total of 113. And OTPS is 5.2 for a total of 119.
All right. Patricia, you have something to ask?
Yeah.
98% of the
96.
expense is personnel.
Yeah, 96.
Is it common in organizations?
Yeah.
County?
Yeah, we're a service oriented industry, so that's fine.
Alice.
So once we get a ratified contract with PSC CUNY, how are you gonna budget the increases for whatever the union gets in the contract?
So historically, when that happens, we get the money for that. The only thing we don't get is people's step increases. And that's always been. And that's on average.
Like this, not like this.
That's yeah, those are called across the board,
But not those.
and then the step increase. Yeah. So usually the step increase is they total about $1.5 million a year. On average.
Other questions, comments?
And CUNY hasn't budgeted for the contract either when they asked for their money because they had no budget for the contract. So in asking for the city, for the budget for CUNY, the contract is up in the air, so they're like praying that what we get, if there's a contract ratified, will be enough, or they'll have to ask for extra funding. But they said they couldn't go and ask for money that they don't know what it is. That's from the, what's his name, Sharif, what's his last name?
Solomon.
Solomon, the EBC, financial.
Loretta.
And you may have noticed, our actually OTPS went down slightly.
Well, so the thing with that is, since those are final numbers, it is down, but the prior year includes, because that comes from CUNY, it includes the maintenance guys.
To keep the numbers small, so the deficit is small. We have made major decisions on lowering our TPS costs, and those kinds of things, the fiscal management. You look at the budgets like on behind it. And that's really important to know.
So what you're saying is how the money is being managed, how the money is being spent is very efficient to bring those costs down. And those costs would cover, besides custodial staff. Especially for students who don't know anything about this, can you give some examples of what that?
Sure, it can be computers, it can be office supplies, it can be furniture, it can be subscriptions, memberships, travel.
So it's things that are not salaries for personnel.
Elevator maintenance, manual maintenance, things that you see that's working. The other thing you should know that the cost of OTPS has gone up by 13.5%. Which 13.5% in the last 2 years. But our budget has stayed steady. And part of it is like, there's always that push and pull, like I need a new computer and we're looking at how we're gonna pay for it. So those are the things that we have to be mindful of because we just don't have access to the money that's sitting there. The $12 million that's in there, it's like your savings account that ensures that for next 2 years, we'll be on solid grounds. If I deplete that, what do we do next year? Will we have a budget deficit higher? Keep in mind the increments are going to be 1.5 million, so you're talking about $7 million deficit.
And then back to Loretta's point, so two of the things that we did to kind of manage the budget differently than we did prior to COVID was the way that we allocate the OTPS fund. So in prior years, we would issue the entire budget out to the divisions and departments, and they were able to spend freely as they want. But we took a more centralized approach in holding the money and then people requesting it just to ensure that you buy only what you need, not buy because you have the funds available to you. We did something similar to vacancies. So if somebody left and they had a savings of 20,000, right? In the past, people could say, oh, I can take that 20,000 and do this, or this with it. I hold it, and then now it has to be requested, just so we can just be a little bit more stringent on what we're purchasing.
And Thomas.
So where the budget goes, the indirect cost from grants like NSF, it takes 65% of that. Like, where does that fit into the budget?
That doesn't go here, that's managed through our grants office. Yeah, we do have tax levy grants here, and there are things outside of the operating budget that are done through central. So like our fringe and energy, that's held by central. And if there are grants, and they probably house that money. But a lot of our grants are done through the grants office.
And then that goes to fund operating costs. They allocated using the different.
Some of the expenses are not eligible in the tax levy, like advertising to recruit additional students. That's half of our budget. We use that. We have certain subscriptions, middle states membership. All these memberships are not eligible under tax levy, so we charge it to RF. But and also we use that money to offset adjuncts for recovery time and those things that occur. So every year I'll make a request to transfer funds. It's not 65% that you get. So it's not really, in some cases, we're lucky if it break even because the Research Foundation puts in 8% of their fee on top of it. So in a lot of cases, especially in the side of academic side, is break even is a good number. After Research Foundation takes their 8%, the money sits there. As soon as you spend it, they take 8%. So in other words, if I have $100 and I send a bill for $90, they will take not 8% of $90 and add it for their management fee because they have an organization that has to manage it. So we do. Last year we purchased computers using RF money because I couldn't fit it in as part of our tax levy. So those are the things like flexibility we have that I want to utilize to make sure at least we meet the basic needs of the college.
Any other questions or comments?
Anthony, can you tell us how we fare compared to the other communities in general?
Deficit.
Deficit.
Yeah, we're the second largest next to the NCC.
Second largest college.
Yes.
But in
Community
Like
college.
deficit.
I don't know. You
I don't recall, I have the numbers, but I don't remember it. So sort of like two colleges are remaining in sort of in really tough position in terms of finances. So some of the restrictions that were placed on us 2 years ago, it's not on us as much. We still have to be careful. But for those two colleges, I think one is York and the other one, maybe College of Staten Island. They are actually people, Kingsborough. They can't hire people, they have to go through the hoops to get those things approved. I'm sure it's frustrating for those folks. We're not there, partly because we were very smart in spending our stimulus money. And now we can't call it stimulus money, it's reserve money, and it's actually your savings. So this will stabilize next 2-3 years until we get enrollment done.
And the way CUNY publishes their financial statements, you can't see a clear deficit because they buried everybody's cash reserves into their revenue. So it looks like they don't have a deficit, so you have to like unscramble that and calculate it. So that's why it's hard to tell what other schools' deficits really are.
Maria?
So of course, you know, I have to ask.
No.
Can I have paper? That's all I want. I just want paper.
To print on or the presentation?
To print, no.
So you
Print
just
on.
need a
I just
little more
want
paper. Well, and this is a perfect place to ask.
This is a running, just so everybody knows.
And Anthony makes the decision.
All right, Shannon said he's gonna give you paper.
No, it's a running joke, just so everybody knows, I've been here for like 8 years at this point, and I've always said, we used to have a budget for paper, but just like he explained, they clawed everything back. So I no longer have a paper budget in legal. So every time I see him, I'm like, I need paper.
Like go to legal, there's a whole room full of paper.
Absolutely.
That's departments that bought a lot of paper. We can't print anymore. We have tons of paper in our department.
There you go. We have to
we can't
redistribute
print
the paper.
We have paper, we're not allowed to print.
Well, feel free to donate it to legal, because we always use paper.
Something to say really, something to point really quickly is that in any division, any department, you are allowed to see the budget. There's nothing sort of hidden with the budget. So your department, you have a liaison to the budget people, and that person has access to the budget. So your department should be able to tell you what their budget is. Your division should be able to tell you. If they don't tell you, you can ask. It's nothing that is hidden. And then also the updates on the website, on the LaGuardia website, has budget update.
So just to add,
Nothing-
to add to Patricia, so every time that campus update goes out, I will announce when the budgets are available by department, so just do that. You don't have to ask anybody.
Yeah, and
Go
ask
to the
your
campus
department to show the budget.
Last question, comment again.
And we're kind of laughing about it, I mean, just a question, like, how are department budgets determined for the supplies? Because like coming from MEC, we're always out of markers, we're always out of paper, we're always out of reasons, and I gotta beg to get them, and then the teachers look at us like we're crazy. Like when a professor comes and I give them one marker, they're like, are you nuts? Like, you know, like, well, I don't understand, you know, how is it determined by, you know, I mean, is there any thought to like math uses a lot more markers than, you know, another, I mean.
Yeah. No, there is. So a couple things with that. So one, when we held back the budget, we did a 3-year average. So every division has a set budget based on their spending habits. Then we just told areas to go out and tell us what you need. So there should be no begging going on in this college. I know it's happening.
I want 10 boxes and I gotta negotiate for 5, and this is like, that's.
That was not the culture that we tried to. I know you want to speak about the markers, but I just want to speak in general, look at the markers. And anybody, someone needs pens or pencils or whatever, right? That's just a regular thing that people need to do their daily jobs. That is something I would never, ever say no to. So if that's happening, let me know, and then I can speak to whomever is telling me, you know, who's ever giving you pushback.
For the markers, like, as he said, MEC department, I teach, I need 1 marker or 2 markers a day, like I write so much on the board. And we have to go and stand to them, like, give us marker, I don't like begging, initially.
Okay, but can I ask, where are these markers going?
I don't know.
Getting them in your best.
No, I always have it in my bag.
They do dry out, and
It's also that they give you the markers. I'll add a little bit to the marker. So the e-stock room is where the departments will order the markers. And basically, it's a historical from the last, I want to say maybe 12, 13 years. It's a historical collection of how the departments have been using those markers. Prior to, so you're still getting what you used to get, right? So, and there's always like a little bit of an increase. We understand there's more classes being taught. But when you go from like having 1,200 markers to 3,000 markers, we question that, right? So the idea is going, right, asking the departments, how are you using it? Is it being used, like, are you giving each department, personnel like a box of markers? Or are you keeping them in your closet? Because how your department is using it may be completely different. Professors may not know, right? So there might be like a stack of markers that are drying off and that's being handed out to the professors, but yet they're ordering 3,000 markers.
No race.
You're gonna read your paper on this.
I'm
gonna be careful. So here's what I'm taking to.
There is some more meeting left to go. But Elizabeth,
In my division, and I don't wanna name names,
my question sort of is.
Doesn't leave this one.
Except for the video that's gonna be on YouTube tonight.
It's okay, so I get it, guys, like, we're at the point where we're kind of buying our own office equipment. Like, I just burned out a second office monitor and long story short, my hub isn't really working. I'm not a tech person.
Too much detail.
Yeah, I had to buy it myself essentially. Like, it's scary to ask, like, and I'm told, is it true, like, I'm told that our budget is full up for the whole year. But I thought our budgets go through June.
The budget, well, yeah, the budget sends you.
Thank you.
Let me answer that. IT things anytime your equipment fails or breaks down, call the helpline. Yeah, and you can call my office. We'll replace those. You don't need to bring your own equipment. Okay? There is no reason for you to bring your own equipment. If we have to do something, we'll replace it because you have to be productive. You have to do your job. So just.
So there should be no begging and no buying.
Right.
How do you go? That should go and happen someday.
Any way to have it start earlier, because I know the budget gets released over the summer, but departments don't necessarily get access to it until October, and then we have maybe 6 months to actually spend those things. And it causes a lot of issues for subscription services, because we're always behind payments, because they bill us at a time where it doesn't work for our fiscal year, but then it's like months before we can get the budget available, and then start the process to get through purchasing. And that also sends us back like 6 months behind bills.
So the budgets are loaded usually the first week of July, right? So whether it's on, this is all stuff that I make up, right? So this is not important per se. CUNY gives me access to money in July, it's first week of July. So if you need to buy something like subscription, and I know we've had this problem in the past, we can let you buy. So reach out to whomever is your chair or department liaison or me, and then we can work that out. But it won't happen until July. It's no earlier than that.
Right. Like, this is all stuff usually happening over the summer, but then
all this pretend, all this Excel sheets and all this, that's all happening beforehand. But CUNY loading, not happening until first week. Okay. So we can't buy anything until.
What's interesting, just to finish, what's interesting is that there seems to be like a kind of a disconnect between what's happening on the ground level. Like people think that at the library, in the department, and feel like you have to buy your own equipment, and what you representatives or box holders are saying. So how do we,
This
bridge the
information from my chair that's saying that like, I can't give you budget information because we don't have it. And that's in September already.
That's not true, but it's
I always do a preliminary budget for June. Just to say, this is what we think your budget will be for the upcoming year. Yeah, it may change, but there's something there that exists. Whether your chair is getting it is another story.
So then so we're identifying some gaps in communication and this is a good spot for it, even though for most of you, it's kind of boring. But for those of you who need markers or equipment or subscriptions, it's very relevant. So let's work on, statements play a role in this, but let's work on figuring out how to close that gap.
I think senators should ask at their department meetings to have the budget presented every month. Also, like every department meeting, we should be seeing the budgets for every area division, that the budget should be made transparent. So the transparency doesn't come from these guys, it comes from somewhere else in between.
Lisa.
So I know for our department, I know the budget early on, the problem is, and I know there are stuff, but the and that in itself is months of process. So I put my repetitions in July, for spring, for the fall, but after the fall, we have so many to go through, and that is my question. There are certain things that I have to repeatedly buy and start courses. So that can be done. So the bottom of that 50%. Yeah. Okay.
And we've got now just a couple more minutes for this, and then send me your feedback. I will make sure it gets to Patricia and of course send it to her, and we can try to address it.
I'm working on the purchasing, probably is short staffing in there. We have 2 failed searches, so that we lost like 6 months. The minute we offer the salary that's in there advertised, the finalists walked out. There was no one to go to, so now we've gone back to ground zero, so all over again. The other challenge has been CUNY buy has been established. Vendors have requirements. They have to register. So if it's non-tax levy, they have to register CUNY buy. If they are non-tax, or if they're tax levy, they have to register with the city before even they're given a PO. So those things, a lot of vendors are walking out on us, even if we give them. And so we're working on it. I'm hoping that I'll have better news in a month or 2. We have searches ongoing. If you know anyone who has some experience in purchasing, please ask them to respond. And hopefully they just we will be more than happy to interview them. If they're the right candidates, we'll hire them. We did move one person from grants office to help with non-tax levy purchases, but we have a lot of purchases. We have a lot of independent contract agreement, a lot of blanket orders, a lot of those things. We need to streamline it. I'm aware of it, so I'm working on it. Hopefully within 2-3 months, we have better solution that we can present to you, but these are steps we've taken. And how do we evaluate ourselves from that point on?
Great. Thank you, Shahir. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you all for your questions. And thank you for always coming to Senate when we ask. And thank you, Patricia, for leading the team. And then stop share. Oh, I'm in charge, So we are now at committee reports. And I have not cleared to know if you have a committee report, if you happen to be here, but I'm going to check in with you. Committee on committees, you do not need to have a report, but if you do, wave your hand at me.
And we're looking for members for 3 committees: academic integrity, campus affairs, and academic standing. Hopefully by next meeting, we'll have members for it.
There, so committee on committees is looking for candidates for those committees. Right. Thank you. If you have any thoughts, talk to Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth. Academic standing, no report today. Okay, thank you. Committee of faculty, actually, we're meeting after this.
Yes.
Yep. All right. And campus affairs committee. Yes.
So, campus affairs committee is working currently on several things. So I'll start with the informational point. MBJ has won the bid. So they are now the new catering service for the college.
So the old catering service is the new catering service.
Unfortunately. However, so the last two, RFPs, right, was Aladdin and MBJ. So out of those two, the one who won was MBJ, and that's just because Aladdin was requesting a lot of money in terms of capital investment. So that was another one. I do have 8 minutes and I'll share that with, the executive board so that they can share that with everybody else. And what are some of the commissions that are gonna come back to the school? One of the changes in the new contract for MBJ is that they are going to allocate $22,000 to our, Bronze School, which is the food and security program. So there's gonna be $22,000 that's going to be given. We are preparing a list of recommendations. Some of the things that were discussed in the last meeting was maybe bundling some of the items that they have so they can create a cheaper price for students. We definitely are talking about evening, how do we address the evening issue with food and security and just being able to provide services for our evening and weekend students. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to get the weekend, but I really think that the evening is going to be something that we can work towards. So that was one of the things that we're working on. I will send, if you have any recommendations, I ask that you please send them over to the committee in terms of anything that you want us to add. We're compiling a list for MBJ for their review. Okay. Just to add to that, one of the items on the list that we have is maybe providing healthier versions of the food that they offer. Okay. The second was a presentation from Vice President Efren about the turnstiles and what that looks like. We went over.
Let me just update the students who are new at academic centers. So there is interest in the part of the administration in installing turnstiles that you have to show your ID or use your ID to get the turnstile to open to enter the campus. In the entrance to the E building and the entrance to the C building. It's been under discussion for a while. And now that, so you know the context.
So again, we're asking all the members of Senate to go back to the constituents, bring back some recommendations, any concerns that you may have, any comments that you may have, so we can compile that together. Based on the presentation, it's still at a very early stage. So there's two components, right? It's your turnstile and it's the asset management system. So when you talked about the asset management system, because it's such an early age, that hasn't been something that they're looking to. They're right now really more looking at the design of the turnstiles. And those would be in the entrance of the E building and in the entrance of the C building and in the Van Dam entrance. The main building would not have one. Couple of things that were said in the discussion was how it does help in monitoring the flow of the people that are coming in. It really does help in access management. So if someone is under what we call a bolo, like person of interest, that they cannot come in, they just won't be able to walk in the door. Tailgating is another issue that was addressed. Sometimes the security, you see the staff showing their IDs and people going right behind them. This would kind of create that control. So those were some of the comments and some of the issues that were addressed. Really, the cost of the design and the cost of the turnstiles is going to be covered by capital monies. So it's not really going to be affected by what you saw earlier today, but we do want to have input from the college community as to what they see. Again, one of the things that was expressed by some of the people, some of the members of the committee, was this understanding that how would that help, or how would that control access for just anyone coming into the campus? And I think the idea was that if you have been authorized to come in, if you're faculty, staff, students, someone who's attending, an ACE program class, that you should have no problem coming in. But if you were just walking in because you wanted to speak to someone, you would either be a visitor and you would have to be registered as a visitor, or if you didn't have any kind of ID, then you would have to go through security and be able to get some clearance to be able to come in. So you would have to tell them exactly, which is kind of what we have right now. Where you have to sign this logbook telling where you're going. So that was the presentation on the turnstiles. The other thing that we discussed on campus affairs is the First Amendment audits.
Would you need to explain what those are? Because some people
So
don't.
First Amendment auditors are anyone who decides to come into the campus because we're a public building and basically say, I'm gonna videotape, right? I'm gonna videotape and I'm gonna come into your office and I'm gonna videotape what's going on. They have a legal right under the First Amendment to do so. However, there are some guidelines, right? They can't disrupt services. There are some areas that are restricted, counseling department, health, anything that's covered under privacy law. Our early children learning center, where we have minors, all of those areas are restricted areas and therefore should be identified as restricted areas. So inside offices, they can't. Inside classrooms, they can't. So one of the things that we're doing to sort of educate the college community is having some training sessions. So we will be forwarding, we have compiled a form to try to get all the senators and their constituents to not just front staff, because I think it's more, not just the front staff that needs to have this information, but just in general, anyone to have, how do you deal with a First Amendment auditor? Library can tell you that it has been in most libraries, I think, right? And the whole idea behind the First Amendment auditors is that they want to cause disruption. They want to cause a reaction because that's how they get their YouTube channels to get likes. So part of the training session is to educate, again, the college community, what are your rights? How to handle that situation? When do you have to notify campus safety? Legal, Maria Cooks has left already, but we have both online training sessions and in-person training sessions were scheduled. We just have dates to be sort of worked out. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And we're asking people, there's a form that we have prepared, Campus Affairs Committee has prepared, they're actually reviewing it tonight. Where we're asking you, you may deem that your area is a public area and you're not sure. So we're saying, tell us what you do in your area, right? What are some of the activities that you do in your area? Because based on that, you may fall in one of these categories where what you do is private and therefore should not be allowed to be filmed. And then adding to that is that if you are doing one of those areas, we're working communication to have clear signage that would say, this is authorized personnel only, filming not allowed, right? You can't just turn around and say filming is not allowed everywhere because that would be illegal. There has to be some sort of legal basis to why you're restricted and you're dealing with, social security numbers, personal information. So the type of work that you do may deem that area unauthorized for public.
How soon will we have that time? Because in financial aid, we deal with social, and there was one in the financial aid. So we would like that very soon, so that we don't have to.
So we have the form already. I will send it over to the Campus Affairs Executive Group so that they can send it out to all the senators. I would love that everybody takes a look at it and just go ahead and fill it in. If you even think that maybe the activities in your area are deemed private, I would say fill it out.
But you can, people can't film. People were asking me, I think person gets permission to come on campus and do the film. They must have signed on.
Well, they did. They hadn't walked in, they were visitors, they signed in and said, I'm going X, Y, and Z. So one of the things we have a draft for the visitors policy. In the draft of the visitors policy, which all the Campus Affairs Committee members already have, and they're reviewing it, we're meeting next week, is that if you're coming in as a visitor, we're asking them to assign a visitor's tag. Yes. So that you're required as a visitor to wear this tag. So when you're going into an office, you will know that person is not an employer, student, or someone from another community. They're really just here to visit. And also you have to tell them what is the purpose of your business on the college? One of the things that we found when we were looking at for the library, if you look at CUNY's library policy, it specifically says that it's not for public usage. It's mostly, and it's in there, it literally is in the website for CUNY's website, right? If you're coming, if you're a student, a CUNY student, if you are faculty staff, you can use the library. If you're not, and you're just a general community member, you have to request, I think it's called a metro. I don't know if you heard of that, Thomas?
We have, that's not across the board.
Well, it's not across the board, but it should be across the board because it's literally stated on the, so I did ask Marie, Cooks to take a look at it. It's stated in the CUNY's website, like CUNY Central's website. So, right.
There's an organization called Metro, they handle, interlibrary requests and visits.
So it states there that if they're coming to get a library book, they need to make that request first. So we are kind of tying a little bit how visitors are handled as when they come in, right? If you know that you're gonna see in the visitors policy, if you have guests that have been invited, and this is done across other schools. I can tell you, if you go to Hunter, if you have been invited, you're a professor and you're invited to do a talk into another college, they have to notify security that you're coming. Okay, and then security will give you a pass that you have to walk, that you're walking around, that you're a visitor, and the greeter has to meet you. So we're not going as strict as saying, we're recommending that a greeter is there, obviously, but in the case of a greeter is not, then, they have to define where they're going to, they can't just roam around. I think that's one of the ways we're trying to control those visitors, First Amendment auditors and what they do.
Great. Any questions or comments?
Wait, I have one last.
Oh, so sorry. Yes.
So the campus affairs has been asked to take a look at some of the space committee. There was years ago, there was a committee called Space Committees, and they basically what they did was look at allocation of space, both classrooms, offices, and wall space, right? We've had some requests for people to put up whether it's art, informational items, things like that on the wall space. So what Campus Affairs has been asked to is to take a look at that process. So what the committee is currently doing, we have 4 teams that are doing an assessment of all the wall space on campus, basically looking at what areas they are, determining what's being used there. Is it like informational items? Is it union boards? What is the space? How is it being utilized? And then the idea is after that, come up with a policy and a process to determine how that space will be used. And the hope is that we would give everybody who's interested in being able to put signage or not signage, art or any sort of presentation, the ability to have that. So maybe a rotation model, something like that. So we're still in the early phases of that, but those are some of the projects that Campus Affairs is currently working on.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. Any questions? Yeah, Thomas?
Will they print on the visitor face of the, like they do it from?
No, so we went and if the turnstile, I should probably say that. When this turnstile goes into effect, right? The idea will be that the asset management system should be able to scan your ID.
But that's a visit. It's like some place you're a visitor and you get a little bit.
We would like that. Right now, we don't have the ability to do it, so we're just putting the person's name. Okay, but in the future, that is one of the things that we will talk to whoever is designing or coming up with what that asset management system looks like as one of the options that we would like to have. We also want to make sure that it integrates with Q first, and I think ACE uses another center grade. Yes, we wanted to integrate with those systems. So the idea would be yes. But we're so early at the stage right now, we're not sure. But we're really trying to get feedback from the college community to be able to kind of, as we're thinking about what this is gonna look like, how does it look? Well, weddings on the, right. I don't know if I wanna say pro or not, or.
We already had that discussion, and already went through it, and it's moving forward, so.
But what are some of the,
Well,
what
there
are
is
some of the concerns, right? Cause I think that's what really.
Are there, so are
When are
there,
your meetings?
The 12th.
The 12th of each month.
so I think,
Next week.
Next week.
Between 1 and 2, I think that's what.
Additional, I have comments and concerns. Now, that the time to hear those.
and I would say it might be helpful for Senate to have more of a formal presentation about turnstiles to seek feedback.
Okay.
So a little more information in detail for Senate, that, and then we could respond to the specifics. So that would be, for a future meeting. And we have meetings with time. Unlike this meeting, which doesn't have any more time. Any other pressing questions? And then again, talk to Evelyn. Email me, we will seek some feedback, but let's hear a little more about,
And
turnstiles.
we'll send you the links to the ones that.
Great. Sounds good. All right, of the remaining committees, I don't see many committee chairs here. Are there any other committee reports? Then, there is no unfinished business as far as I know. Any new business? Yes.
Just an invitation, our LaGuardia Performing Arts Center has a Nutcracker, they do it every year. I just wanna make sure that, everybody's aware. Please bring your families, it's a really inexpensive event to see Joffrey, which is about his excellent work, and right after that, the LPAC team does a wonderful job taking the little theater and transforming it into Santa's Toyland, so I encourage everyone, with gifts, I encourage everyone to please stop by and bring their family.
I would say that was an excellent announcement, not
Oh,
exactly
sorry.
new business.
The 15th.
The 15th of December, so very good. Then, new business would require some Senate action, the Senate to do something. And you all, as senators, are welcome to bring any. But hearing none, any other announcements? John?
If you bought something today, thank you very much. It's back in the option. And if you had to come to this meeting and couldn't pick up your stuff, you can probably contact Eric Holman to pick it up. I know that's what I'm doing with things I purchased and and thank you again, Joe, for inviting me.
All right, so no other announcements, then, I don't need a motion to adjourn, the meeting is adjourned. Oh, yeah, I know that. Thank you so much for being here, and, happy holidays to you all. See you January 8th, that's 1 week after New Year's. Sorry it's so early. Yep. In the year. January 8th.
Are we safe for my?
I don't know.